Right, so late in the day from my end, early hours. I mean, I suppose it doesn't really matter because it's technically the weekend, and most of the week is free for me anyway, as I balance out my options and all that kind of stuff and blah blah blah. Stuff you might want to know on, might not. That's up to you. It's a mostly a free thinking world. Anyway, yeah, it's that time of the week, Friday. Friday is 4 fun facts with Liam. 4 fun facts specifically in one at a time. 4 episode segments. Well, 4 in total each week, of course. And there's going to be a bit of a theme here. Friday, yeah, seeing it is actually a Friday. Now this one, and it's not Friday the 13th this year. Well, this week yet. I suppose it could be a Friday the 13th on, on February, for all I know. And relative to the calendar. But yeah, let's get started. This first one, now, you might think, and I certainly thought, that Friday the 13th was like a bad omen. I mean, it is a bad omen, but like a bad omen for a lot longer than you'd think. But actually, it's very much, contested, whatever the word is, that Friday the 13th became a bad omen because of Christian stuff. Specifically, the Crusades. There's a lot of... I mean, it was a bad time for everybody. It was sort of like the Inquisition, wasn't it? Where, well, I guess with how it was religion, stuff getting out of hand, people had their own agendas, and people dying and stuff like that for hundreds of years. I mean, I'd sooner take the Crusades over the Spanish Inquisition any day. But yeah, the reason it was 718 now years ago. Yeah. Or even 790. 1307. 13th of October, 1307 was the date would make it on that date. When it's eventually October the 13th, would make it 719 years, and for 719-ish years now, rounding up, as we're in 2026 anyway. Friday the 13th became a bad omen because some French Crusaders, French Crusaders were punished. They were arrested and tortured and executed under the command of King Philip IV of France because he wanted to punish them. So, I mean, I'm going to put in all the references and the sources in the description, but that's basically it for the first episode of this week's Fun Facts with Liam. So be sure to subscribe, comment, and blah blah blah. And I won't say this in every episode. It's just seeing as it's the first one of the day. Depending where you are, it's still Friday, and depending where you are, it's Saturday now. I mean, technically it's Saturday now here, but whatever. I didn't invent time zones. Some Victorian Canadian did. So what can you do? That's also a fun fact within a fact. I can't remember the name of the guy. Something to do with seafaring stuff and compasses. Anyway, yeah, I'll stop watching on and get to uploading this now.
Jesus told me everything is gonna be alright. Oh, Jesus told me everything is gonna be
Rightio, so here is the fourth and final episode of this week's Fun Facts with Liam, and there are quite a few of these. I've been scouring the historica.com website, particularly on this day this happened, and I thought, this day, 19th of December, would be good for inspiration. And particularly this one, I found that America's first black priest who was ordained in Baltimore. He was ordained, I think that's the right word, on the 19th of December 1891, and his name is Charles Uncles. Some of my viewers might know of him already, but basically, other than the fact that he was the first black African American priest, the true subject of why I'm talking about him, or the main subject of why I'm talking about him, isn't just that his history, his troubles, his upbringing, that kind of thing. But he actually, when he started studying theology in the clergy, he actually went to a church or a school near a church or within a church in Liverpool. Yeah, St. Peter's Apostolic. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Anyway, School of Apostles, basically, in St. Peter's little church, to study, to get his robes, get his degree and all that. So basically, the first black American priest didn't just knuckle down and stay within his within his stomping grounds. His first foray into getting his qualifications, if you will, was to go and study abroad, and so he did, which I thought was really, really interesting. I thought he would have been one of the stubborn, old-timey people that would have just, kept going at it in the same place virtually. But he actually went overseas to study, to the other side of the pond. And Liverpool, a lot of northern towns, Manchester, Liverpool, Leeds, they have a lot of a long modern-ish history of certain people, cultures, and people of certain religions kind of more or less living next door to each other. For example, Paul McCartney's parents, they got married either in a church, basically, I think in a mostly Jewish neighbourhood in Liverpool. It was Lime Street or something like that, I can't really remember. Anyway, that was the tale of how Charles Uncles, the first black priest probably ever, unless there were some in the West Indies that were, that preceded him by about 100 years or 200 years, I don't know. But basically, the first African American priest, he got his start by, being a sort of church exchange student, really. So, yeah. All right, so I'm gonna wrap this up and get to editing, and hope you enjoyed Fun Facts with Liam when you all eventually get round to viewing them all this week or whenever. But anyway, they're here, and I will see you later. Hello, this is History Boy, and this is the final episode of this week's Fun Facts with Liam, overall episode 93. And over a couple of weeks or so, maybe a few weeks, I lose track. On Pluto TV, there's a channel dedicated to the Incredible Hulk. You know, the original 70s to 80s version with Bill Bixby. Where he goes by David Banner, which is also sort of referenced in the Ang Lee Hulk film, where Bruce's father is called David, as a little nod to David Banner, David Bruce Banner in the series, uh, being played by Nick Nolte in the Ang Lee film, and actual main Hulk Bruce, I guess, David Bruce being being played by Bill Bixby, and he's the only one who doesn't actually go by Bruce, which is, and it's something to do with the show's writers and directors, or one of the geezers. They thought that uh, Bruce going by Bruce was a bit gay, apparently, according to Lou Ferrigno. Yeah, the guy didn't like uh, the main character going by Bruce, so instead he called him David. But the funny thing is, in the comics, Bruce is his middle name as well, Robert Bruce Banner. For some reason, he didn't like. It's not addressed why he didn't like Robert, or just, but mainly he didn't like the main Dr. Banner going by Bruce, because he thought, Bruce of all names was not manly enough or whatever, which is strange. But if you've seen the intro enough, they still included Bruce as a middle name. It's just that he doesn't go by Bruce in the Bill Bixby show. But everyone else, every other version of Dr. Banner does. He goes by Bruce. He never goes by. None of them go by Robert either. That's just his full official name. According to the profile for the Hulk, who is always more 9 times out of 10 the Incredible Hulk. That's his legendary name. He never really changes that. Apart from I guess the the newer versions where he's going through something, or something's happened to the Hulk, is like with Claire being the depressed Hulk, and the whole thing with the immortal Hulk, which gets a bit complicated. But yeah, that was the bizarre case, or the strange case, of Dr. Banner's name, basically, to top it off for this week. Be sure to subscribe, like, all that kind of stuff, and I'm going to put the references in. Sorry, acid reflux. Probably means I should sleep soon, like half an hour or something. Get a bit of kip. But yeah, just thought I'd top it off with something a bit different compared to the other 3 episodes. If people are you lot are in varying various degrees, or whenever you're seeing these, have yet to to watch, the rest of this week's episodes. But that'll happen when it happens, and I appreciate you all. So, this is History Boy signing off. Righto, welcome to the fourth and final episode of this week's Fun Facts with Liam, and this is about, in relation to episodes I've mentioned before, like how I mentioned Leonardo da Vinci, comparatively, I suppose, as a little reference in my first episode of this week. And by what fucking speech impediment, whatever, not impediment. But yeah, what I mean by that is, basically, this is about Pedro II, the final emperor of Brazil, and I suppose he can be compared to his one of his cousins, Maximilian, who tried to be emperor of Mexico. I can't really remember exactly if he actually officially became emperor, but it basically went tits up for him a lot sooner and a lot more embarrassingly than his little cousin Pedro Jr. basically, who actually managed to be the second emperor of Brazil. I mean, Pedro was overthrown, but he had compared to his cousin Max, he had a good run, and the whole reason kind of why a name dropped Franz Joseph is because Franz Joseph, Maximilian, and Pedro II are all related maternally. So basically, the three cousins were all of were on their mother's side were part of the Habsburg family, part of Austria-Hungary, and Franz Joseph, the most well known of the family. He had loads of relatives, as you'll already know if you've seen the Fun Facts episode about him, where I specifically talk about his many relatives and descendants, and also I kind of talk about his brother Max, who did, went on a disastrous campaign to become Emperor of Mexico, but arguably his cousin Pedro was a lot more successful, as was Pedro I. I think Pedro II's father, who was from a Brazilian Portuguese line, at least. I say at least because the other ancestry and so on and so forth, and established connections and what have you. Another political one after a political one, but cousin Max was an embarrassment. Cousin Pedro less so. But, still got ousted, more or less. Yeah, he got ousted, whereas arguably Max didn't even get to properly establish himself. So yeah, that's basically it for before I witter on and 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 on. Yeah, at some point I'll put the references to the Franz Josef episode of this series, and at some point I'll maybe tomorrow, whenever I get round to it, I'll put the episode about Da Vinci in the description box of episode 98. So yeah, that concludes this week's Fun Facts of Liam. Remember to like, subscribe, comment, but most of all, subscribe, because that's always a good thing. So see you later.